doesn't have to work that way. We can have it work however we want, but that would be my understanding of the role of the president. And it's also my understanding that we may also elect a vice president, but we don't have to do that. And we can talk about what that role would be as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about the superintendent, I think usually you have an existing board member that has experience becomes the superintendent, or I'm sorry, the president. But in this case, I think we have a very unique circumstances where we're going to be hiring a superintendent. In my view, oh, sure, sorry. In my view, I think the president should be somebody that's going to be around for a couple of years and be a board member for a couple of years. I think it's very important because you're going to have a new superintendent, and I think you're correct that the president will have probably more conversations with the incoming superintendent than maybe the whole board. I think we're all going to be involved in selecting the superintendent. It's just but natural that there's going to be one point of contact, which would be the president. So I think you're really looking for somebody that's going to be around for 2 years and has some experience, even though that field is very narrow.
Yes.
That's my view on
Yeah, I mean,
the
what about
person we should look for.
institutional knowledge of how this board operates, the issues that the school is facing, especially in this time of transition, I think is important to have. So, as you say, that's a narrow candidate pool, as you and I are off in a year, and then we have 3 brand new members.
I think the institutional knowledge is going to be on the board, necessarily the president's seat, but you know, the knowledge is here, whether they're the president or whether they're still on the board. I think that we're still going to have the same guidance from the people that have been here for longer. Is it, in your opinion, that it's more necessary to be the person that's the president to have that historical knowledge?
Yes, I think so.
I think one of the knocks on the board from people I've spoken with is communication has been great. I think, not there's any landslide election, but I think 2 non-NPC people being elected is significant. I'm not saying it's world-changing, but you also had 2 NPC, supporting an NPC candidate who I think, as much as I've learned from Michael Brandon so far, it looks like he's very an excellent communicator. He's passionate about communicating. I don't think he's a person that's necessarily looking for the role, and more a facilitator, which, as Susan said, the job is just facilitating. You have 1/7 vote. And I think in the past, some board presidents have exerted a little more direction and a little more power than they needed to. And I don't see that in Michael Brandis. And I, right or wrong, the knock on the former board was a lack of communication, a lack of transparency. And I think that's what people, if you're an NPC person or non-NPC, people in the community are really looking for that.
I agree.
I actually think that's a very valid point, Peter. I think communication is something that we need to emphasize and look for in our new board president. I think that's a big thing. And I think Michael Brandy, I think he'll do a good job of that. The one part I worry about, guys, and I've shared some of this, is that the board president, from my perspective, having now served on many boards and having been chairperson of one of those boards, is that the board president perspective needs to be, in my opinion, informed by some knowledge of history. So in other words, having some institutional knowledge. And that could be around the budget, could be around facilities, it could be around vendors, and all of those things. If that knowledge resides with the president, reduces administrative inefficiencies. And what I mean by that is, look, you can imagine any scenario where a board president who's been around for a few years just knows what's been going on in the school and can discuss those issues with a new superintendent, and allow and make a decision on whether information, whether or not an agenda item needs to be added or a special meeting needs to be held or not. What I worry about most is I want to keep our administration focused on the really hard job of educating our children. And if we overburden our administration with issues that have been already dealt with in the past, because we have someone who doesn't have that institutional memory, it causes, I think, it decreases our ability to actually focus on what matters most, which is our children. So that's my view, guys. I think, Michael, I think you do a great job of communication stuff. I just think we've got years, and I want to see you as president at some point, just not now. I think the right time is, after you've had a little bit of time with the board. That's my perspective.
Listen, Mickey, I totally appreciate your perspective. Some of that institutional knowledge can lead to an abuse of power. And people do not want that, and they're not looking for that. And Michael will need to come up the learning curve very quickly. I know he's a hard worker, and I know he's super smart, and I know he's up to that task. So I completely, I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate it, but I disagree a little.
Might I, I don't know how appropriate it is for me to talk about myself here, but I just want to address a couple of these concerns because I think it's worth addressing. To Mickey's point about institutional knowledge. Now, we've lived here since my children have been in kindergarten. We've been involved in the school and the community all the years we've been here. I have two children, rising junior and a rising sophomore. So I have experience in all three schools, and we are, as I say, deeply integrated into the community and the social fabric of the community and the values that this community represents, and we're very invested in that. With two children in the school still, we have skin in the game. I say we because I think of my family when that's just not just me, and I think that I think of my family the way I would think of the board. I have led committees and boards before. My experience has been in the private sector, not in the public sector. But I've worked in a very highly regulated industry where you do have to concern yourself with building a good cohesion around very smart people and people from different cultures and different backgrounds to find the best solution for where you're going. And for all of us here, I think one of the things I'd like to see is ability to have an open discussion in a civil manner, but then to understand, as Mickey had suggested, that in the end, we just want the best education for our children. We want the best resources for the school. I wouldn't think there's any more power from a president. The president is a facilitator, Peter, you're exactly right. The president is a leader to the culture of a board that can empower the administration and the principals at each of the schools to do the best job they can. So I don't see it as an autocratic role. I see it as an opportunity to also communicate well to the community, because I think, as others here know, I think a lot of the dissension that we've seen recently was really a result of the lack of good communications, and I think that is an area that I'd be very focused on. I think it can be quite productive to find good solutions. Doesn't mean, the nail that sticks up gets knocked down. Everybody does not have to agree, but I think we all have to, at the end of the day, be civil and understand we're going towards the same objective, which is the best education for our children, providing the best resources to the administration to do their job best.
What, because I've been on the board 5 years, what communication issues, I guess it's coming from the 3 new board members, has occurred over the last couple of years?
I think it was the lack of communication.
Yeah, well, what areas?
Well,
What did you want communicated to you?
For instance, in DEI, okay, and without, we can talk about this more thoroughly, but I think there could have been a better sense of the issues around what the district was doing with a curriculum based on the mandates from New York State. And I understand there are mandates that we have to respect and integrate. That's our responsibility. But to be able to communicate that to the community doesn't mean that everyone's going to like what they hear, but for people to be aware of what's going on. I think in other areas in the curriculum itself, reading materials, for instance. I know we've talked about this. I know Mara and I have had very good conversations about this. I think this is an area that all of the communications that could have occurred did not. I think going forward, being more open with the community and letting them know that voices are heard, even if those voices disagree with the school is doing, that's something that we can do better.
Well, I mean, we've had multiple board meetings, we've
And I
had
agree.
long-term planning sessions
Sorry to cut you off. but
related to
I
DEI
actually
that
agree wholeheartedly
nobody has
with the
showed up at.
communication point. I think the world has changed, and I think we need more, I think we need more, deeper, more frequent communication with our community, and I think the community's asking for it, and I think deserves it. I'm with you completely on that. I don't see the point you're making, Peter, around there being a misuse of power in the past. And so, in other words, I want to focus on the communication point. Well, I am going to make the point again that, we have a multi-year facilities plan. We have a $51 million budget that has a tremendous amount of complexity. I've run companies with budgets that are very big, and this is far more complex than those I've seen in companies that had even bigger budgets. This is very complex. And we have negotiations with teachers, contractors, and unions that are ongoing and are influenced greatly by things that have happened in the past. So look, this is simply about me saying, look, I want someone who comes at it that's not learning on the job. This is your first board meeting, Michael, and you were just sworn in an hour ago.
That's correct.
So look,
But I have lived here for a dozen years, Mickey.
If we had no other alternative, I think I like you as a person. I think you're actually a good natural leader, and I think that's very useful. But why? We've got other options right now.
What is the institutional knowledge that you think is so bad? To me, I think the institutional knowledge is understanding the priorities and objectives of a community who we've been elected to represent. I think that's first and foremost. And second of all is just being familiar and understanding the school. And as I say, we've been here since kindergarten. We've been very involved in the school for many years as a family, and we still are. And I'm not sure what special institutional knowledge that a smart person, not even talking about myself now, saying any of us, I think any of us have those capabilities of running up a curve to understand, I don't know, how to run the meeting, how to look at an agenda, and we talk about how strong our bench is. I mean, Roy and Rachel and the rest of the team are so strong. It seems to me that experience on the board itself perhaps would be of value if a person's coming in here cold and is not familiar with the community or with the school itself.
But we are going to be having a new superintendent
Right?
at the beginning of the next calendar year. So even if it is somebody that already is here, there's a lot of transition we have going on. And I think that, as Mickey said, if we didn't have a choice, you do what you do, but we have some great candidates that have the background.
Who else is nominated? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'll nominate
mean-
Susan.
Okay,
Is there a second?
second. Are there any other nominations or?
Mike, I hear what you're saying, but I think there is knowledge to be gained when you're on the board. I know the three of you don't think that.
No,
based
it's
on
not
your
true. That's not true. I
No,
think
based
there
on
is
your
knowledge.
actions that the three of you guys had for the last 2 months, that's my opinion. And I'm not going to go into details, but that's my opinion. And I think it's imperative that we have somebody that's at least been around for a year and has some institutional knowledge and knows how to act on a board. And you have a grin on your face. Do you want to go into
I
details?
only get a year. I have, look, I would not have wanted to be on the board if I didn't have great respect for the people on this board, but I would have to respectfully disagree that a year of experience is of much greater value versus...
Well, there's other things that go along with that. Let's just say that.
Okay, well then,
Okay.
let's hear what those other things are, I guess.
No, because they were in confidence, and they shouldn't be. The three of you guys don't think it was, but they were in confidence.
I don't even know what you're talking about, Michael.
The email traffic that occurred over the last 2 months,
The email traffic that occurred.
Hey, I think, I want to hear, I mean, I haven't gotten this perspective yet. I want to hear, Roy, what do you think? You've been doing this for 3 decades.
Seriously?
Does it matter? Does it have, does it matter? This institutional memory we're talking about, does that experience matter? If you say no, then that's great, that's fine, let's move on. But I'm curious.
Well, I've been here long enough to know that I don't want to get in the middle of the Hatfield and McCoys, but having said that, do I think it's useful? Yes, of course. Experience and knowledge is useful, and that goes without saying. Of course it is.
Yeah.
You know, so from a superintendent perspective, if you have somebody who has some level of experience and history about how things operate in the district, on the, you know, the internal side of the district, you will, I think it can be useful, absolutely. I'm not going to say any more than that because it'd be silly for me to do so.
Well, that's 6
I don't
months
get a
from
vote.
now, right?
Okay.
I'm sorry?
That's 6 months from now we're talking about, am I right? We make a transition
Oh,
at the end of your
for the-
term.
Yeah, mhm, yes, yes. I was just trying to do a general sense of question.
Understood.
Any other discussion or nominations?
The only thing I would add is that, I wouldn't want to serve as president unless I felt that there was broad support. And so if we vote, I intend to abstain from my vote, or abstain from the vote. And, you know, one scenario, Michael, I could envision is if I were to serve as president, is you would serve as vice president, and there would be an active role of the vice president. We would work together and we would get to know each other, because I know that's something that you have encouraged me to do,
Mhm.
and I'd like very much to do that.
You know, and I like the idea of Mike framing. It's important to me, I keep saying the communication point. I would love it if you had a role in that, whether if it's public communication via one of our many media channels, whether it's email or text or through our website, or just addressing key issues publicly. I would love it if you had that leadership role, frankly, in the board. I don't know that we have had that historically, but I believe it's needed now. And so I think what you're saying is if we could create a situation where there was a president, vice president, someone who was focused on communication amongst, as one of the roles, I could be supportive of that.
Connie, how do we do the vote?
Well, I guess we'll take one at a time.
Yeah.
First, nomination is for Michael Francis. First, we'll begin with Eddie Patton, Lennon, and Sherry. Take a vote on that. Michael Francis for president.
Okay, all in favor of Michael Brandis for president?
Myself.
Yep. Your vote.
I see 3. And not in favor?
Not
Well, I
in
don't
favor?
think you have to.
Do we do
That's
not
not
in
in
favor, or
favor.
do we?
Well, just.
There's 3 in favor, that's all you need to
Either
know.
nay or yay.
Okay, then I
Or
guess,
abstaining. So, am I to assume that the other board members are nay?
I'm abstaining.
Not in favor. None.
Would be 3 Nikki, right? And Jen.
so 3 not in
Are you
favor,
nay?
3, I'm a nay, yep.
Mike, nay?
Nay.
Nikki?
Hey,
Okay, so all in favor of Susan Knipp as president?
Yes?
Yes, just, I want to note, I would love to do this in a way that drives consensus, and get us all there, but it doesn't look like we're getting there, and I apologize, guys. But I do have a strong belief that we want, someone with some history. Sue only has a year, but it's better than 0.
And Susan?
I'm abstaining.
Should
We're gonna have to
abstain, so
vote
it's tied.
again.
And Mary?
I'm a nay.
Nay.
Well,
Did you abstain, Sue?
I did.
So what happens now?
What happens when there's a
This was
tie?
supposed to be an easy roll.
So you like Kamala Harris, you get the vote?
Yeah.
Roy's Kamala?
Yeah.
Does that mean Jen has to stay with the meeting then for the rest of the time until we have president?
But it's Jen.
Do we
Well-
have further discussion, or
Can we do that? In private?
I don't think we can do it in private?
I think, no, this is a.
No, it's public.
Public session topic.
Yeah, hey, everybody, just for my benefit, just pull those mics a little bit closer to you.
Sorry.
Sure.
I'm having a little trouble here. Yeah.
Maybe we can each give our opinion of maybe how we'd like to see this play out. I think the world of Susan. I don't know you well, Michael, but I've known Susan for a long time, and I don't know anybody more level-headed or intelligent. She has actually an excellent background in education, and I think she could go a long way to alleviating some of the concerns that you guys feel that the community has been having. She is a newer board member, so if you feel that there is some legacy issues with how the board's communication, et cetera, other practices have been problematic, Susan is pretty new, so she wouldn't really be carrying that. I think Susan as president with Michael as vice president as a strong number 2. I know Susan wouldn't want to take this role on completely by herself. I think she'd be looking for somebody with solid backup, and then you get your learning curve, and we kind of get the best of both worlds. So that's how I play this out in my mind as the ideal solution. Eddie, you want to give your opinion?
To everybody's point, I think that the village does want more communication. And I've had some conversations with Susan, and I think you would do a good job at that, better than what we've had in the past. I do think that I've known Michael a little bit better. For that reason, I think he would, just knowing his skill sets, I think he would do a better job as the president of the board. The fact that the president doesn't necessarily have any more authority necessarily other than some of the administrative stuff, I would, Michael, what do you, in terms of that scenario?
Truly, I mean, I know I have strong convictions, and I state them for people that know me. They know I'm not shy about saying what I think, but I like to believe I'm thoughtful. And I think if it's in the interest of the board, that would create the best leadership for the board and for the school district, then I certainly would be amenable to that, if that's what the group decided was best.
Amenable to,
Amenable to you leading as president and me working with you as vice president, and perhaps helping to enhance the communication side of what we do to make sure that the community feels heard and well-informed, and we can just go forward together. So that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good solution. You're gonna have two people that are gonna be around for at least 2 years. You know, Michael, you're 3, but Susan 2. And it's only a 1-year appointment. Now, traditionally, it's been 2 years in Bronxville. The president stays around 2 years, but it doesn't have to be. And if people feel next year, I won't be on the board, but if they feel that the changes that the 3 new members think that the board wasn't doing for the last couple of years, communication being one of them, then there'll be another vote in a year from now, and you can change it, but you'll have a year of experience by then. You'll understand a lot more how the board works, and I just think it's a good solution.
For those who know, we've had this discussion before, I've had a discussion with some of you. You know, I was actually very reluctant. I mean, I may come across as being very ambitious to be president of this board, but really this was not the design. I didn't want to be elected as trustee thinking that I wanted to lead the board. I didn't come into this really with that kind of ambition. I don't lead with my ego, so I really like to believe this is a team effort. And if this is truly what it is, then I'd like to move forward that way.
Michael, I do believe that you felt that way, that you're a reluctant candidate, as am I. In fact, I'm pretty sure I told several of you that very thing.
Yeah.
I abstained from the vote because I was interested in understanding how people lined up, and I want what's best for the board. I don't want us to go forward in a dysfunctional way. If people felt strongly and were divided, then I was certainly willing to throw my support behind you, Michael, as well. Again, I'll say it again. I don't want to assume the president role unless there is support, broader support. And if we're still divided, 3 and 3, then I am willing to support you.
I thought it was your, it was your turn. Listen, I'm one of the people that asked Michael to run for president, and it was more of, I don't think anyone on this board has done a bad job. I think you guys know a ton. I think you put a ton of service in. If you think I think anything less, no. I think my thoughts are the village wants something new, and that's it. And what's a better sell than, okay, we have an NPC candidate, okay, that there's a reason why the NPC had him running for Tom Kern's seat, right? He's a moderate and very electable. You know, there is a reason. And if you have 2 non-NPC people supporting him, and he's a very reasonable person. I've known Susan a long time. I'm not saying Susan's not. She's very smart. She's very reasonable. But I'm like, okay, this seems like a sensible, this seems like a sensible solution, right? Everyone kind of gets what they want, NPC guys, the NPC people are happy. Non-NPC people that voted for me, I'm going to be like, well, I like him. I think he's excellent. I think he's going to do a great job. So it's almost like, here's a compromise solution that kind of like no one can be angry with it, right? Of our constituents, no one can really be angry with that choice. I'm not saying they're going to be angry with Susan, but she's part of the old board for 1 year, which means nothing, right? I think you're all excellent. If I offended you in any way in emails, I apologize. But it was almost like, and I literally, Michael's like, I don't want to. I go, I know, but I don't want to run, but I want you to run. You seem like an excellent communicator. You seem very middle of the road. You seem very fair. And that was my whole thought process.
Yeah, I mean, I hear all of that. My personal view is that some experience is helpful. I don't think it's a super complicated role. I think any of us are qualified to fill it. And for that reason, with a little bit of experience being I think a plus, all other things being equal, because we all have interesting experiences and backgrounds, it's hard not to feel like there's something wrong with me, I've been on the board for 1 year as an alternative with a little bit of experience.
Mickey, you want to weigh in?
Is he frozen? Mickey, are you frozen?
I'm here.
Oh.
No, I'm here. I missed the comment. Jen, what did you say?
Well, I think we were all going through the way we'd like to see this play out in terms of president / vice president, thinking of them as a package, maybe.
I like the idea of Susan as president and Michael Brandeis as vice president. And I think this will give Michael a year to learn, quite frankly, the ropes. There's no way I would take it on, put it that way. I feel like I would be ill-equipped to be able to do that. We're guiding the school through a lot of change at the moment, a new superintendent. And I want someone who's been around that for a while. And so for the sake, again, I'm saying this, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, for the sake of our kids, I want someone who's got a little bit of that institutional memory.
Okay, so Connie,
Love it to be Mike Bentley, but I would love it to be Susan for that reason.
should we take new motions
Take another motion for.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Susan Kniff as president.
Second?
And let's vote.
Okay,
Jen,
aye.
Betty,
I'm gonna say nay.
Michael,
I don't see, I have to abstain here. I don't see how I can vote on this.
I mean, yes.
I'm a nay.
So what is the count?
Susan, are you yourself?
You're up 2-0.
It's
Two.
two.
2-2.
2 all.
2-2. Yeah,
And Mickey,
and Mickey hasn't weighed in.
I'm a yes. I didn't hear Michael Brandy. What was your vote?
you abstain.
He abstained.
Abstain.
Okay.
And Susan?
I abstain.
All right, so it's 3-2, motion passes.
Congratulations.
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 Let me give her this thing real quick.
And now we need a nomination for the vice president.
I'd like to nominate Michael
I'd
Brandy.
like to nominate.
Michael Brandy.
I'll second.
And a vote?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
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 All right.
It was quite suspenseful. I really didn't expect that.
Reality TV at its finest.
I'm just getting the
Deal.
Thank you.
we're gonna do it one at a time.
Okay.
People can raise your left hand. You solemnly affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that you will faithfully discharge, according to the best of your ability, the duties of President of the Bronxville School of Board of Education, to which you have been appointed.
I do.
And Michael Brandes, you solemnly affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your ability, the duties of Vice President of the Bronxville
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Get your name typed in right away.
Okay, it looks like we're working out committee roles.
So, finance.
What I'd like to do is go around the room and get everyone's interest in what committees they'd like to serve on. So can we start with you, Pete?
Sure, Finance Committee could be one. Audit Committee could be two. Bronxville School Foundation Liaison, 3. And 4 would probably be Strategy and Curriculum.
Okay. Mike?
Let me see, I'm just looking at, I was looking at what I haven't been on at this point. Well, the way the committees usually work for the new members, so what they try to do on the committees is you try to figure out what committees are going to be very busy during the year and only be on one of those. And then some of the other committees that aren't as busy, that not have as many meetings, you might be not a chair of that. This particular year, we don't have, I don't think the committees in general are going to be all that busy. Like negotiations was very busy last year. Facilities was really big for almost 3 years. So when you think through what you want to do, it's not as important in prior years, because I think this year the biggest committee would be the whole board, which is hiring the superintendent, hopefully. I think that would be, what's going to keep us busy. That being said, I mean, I've been on the finance committee, that's fine. I don't want to be in the audit committee, I've done that before. I guess the facilities committee, since I've never been on that, I'd be interested in that.
Sorry, can you back up, Mike?
I'm sorry?
So finance?
Finance, and then facilities, because I've not been on the facilities before.
Yeah.
Done the foundations, skills. I guess if you need an audit committee member, but I don't want to be the chair.
Okay.
I've done that, gone there before.
Okay. Michael?
Yeah, 4, right? Is it 4? I'd say liaison, the foundation, I'd be interested in. Finance committee, I throw in. Safety,
Yeah.
I'd be interested in, and strategy curriculum.
I'd say facilities. I'm not sure how many liaisons to the foundation we have, but if there's if anybody.
Usually one.
Just
else out,
one.
they'll let
Just
us know.
one.
Scroll that down, so you can see the others.
Strategy and curriculum and safety. Would be the,
Okay.
most relevant.
No Medicaid committee for you?
Unqualified.
Okay, I would like to be on facilities. I've been on that every year, and I'd love to see the project in my last year, and hopefully the project and I will both move off into the sunset at the same time. Curriculum committee, I've been on, happy to be on again unless other people are looking to do that. Will we have negotiations this year? I feel like we haven't had it except for the year we have.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any
have.
negotiations that are up this year.
Next year after teacher started.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not be on audit. Can I throw that out there?
Okay,
And happy to do whatever else,
okay.
wherever you need to fill.
Mickey?
Sure. So this past year, I was on facilities, health and safety, and PTA. I know we generally rotate. I think it's good for the committees to have that rotation. I'd like to be number one, curriculum. After that, if there's room, foundation, and number three, finance.
Okay.
So I have 4 people from foundation. One for PTA.
No, it's right.
Well, I can switch, I'll switch to PTA.
Do you have the committees filled based on interest?
I only have Michael for the audit committee. I didn't get anybody else.
I think you
I-
said you'd be
I'm on
willing to
audit.
do audit.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you did.
I think Pete wants to be the chair, too. He wants to be the chair of the audit committee.
I'd be willing to do audit, but I don't want to chair it.
Yeah.
If you need a PTA liaison, I don't know if anybody can mention that, or athletics,
Oh, we only have, there's athletics too.
Yeah.
No mention of athletics.
I think Pete took PTA.
Do you want to go PTA and I'll go athletics?
Sure.
Switch that,
You wanna do
okay,
that?
you go PTA
Okay.
and I'll go athletics.
So, so foundation, Michael Brandeis, so we four. We only have, one for that, right?
Sorry, wait a minute.
Sorry. I didn't hear what you just said, Connie.
So you and Michael Brandeis have expressed interest in the foundation.
Yeah.
Why don't we, if that's a strong interest of yours, Michael, why don't you take the foundation?
Thank you.
And I have 4 interested in that, I have 4 interested in the strategies and curriculum.
Okay, so we
We
have,
have 3.
we have Pete, we have Michael, Eddie, and
Mickey.
Mickey.
And me.
Jen.
And Jen.
Oh.
Mickey,
Strategies and
Ford,
curriculum.
Peter, Mike Brandeis, and Jen Lisa.
So last year it was me, Susan, and Jack.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Jen was the chair.
If you want me to stay on it, if you want somebody with that connectivity, I'm happy to do it, but if other people feel strongly,
Who's on the committee? I'm sorry, right now,
so previously it was Jack, Susan, and myself.
right, and who's on the list right now? I'm sorry.
Who are the 4 people?
It's-
Peter Ford, Peter, Mike, and yourself, and
Okay.
Jen Lisa.
All right, I mean, I'm looking, I see something on professional development liaison, I'd be interested in that, sure, so I'll jump off, so you have room on the committee. It's important, I mean, I feel pretty strongly about it, but I'm sure you'll keep us all informed, so.
Well-
Professional development, I'd be very interested in.
Professional development.
Yeah.
Okay, well, since this is an area that there's a lot of concern over communication and transparency, I'd love to see, as much as I enjoyed being on that committee, and I think continuity is helpful, I'd love to see some of the new people get an opportunity to participate there. So, so Michael, you want to do professional development, or would you rather do strategy and curriculum?
I'll stick with the curriculum.
Okay.
I think that's important, and I'd be happy to do it. I've had great conversations with Mara, and I think that it's a lot of great work she's doing, so I'd be happy to be part of it.
Okay, and then we have Eddie and Pete.
You can take me off there then, and I'll just, I'm on 2 things, how many things are you typically on?
Usually 2 to 3.
2 to 3? I can go on something else.
You go with the negotiations, which there won't
There'll be none.
Yeah, so I'll put my hand up for that, too. Negotiations, I'm on that one.
So then I
There was a lot of work of that last year.
Mike Brandeis and
Eddie?
Jen Lisa. So Eddie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, it was Jen.
Jen.
on curriculum?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be on, but.
So
if
why don't you
other
chair it
people
if you've been on before?
All right, I'll chair it.
Well,
You wanna
I
do
love
a
getting
special
Mara's
curriculum? I'll
emails.
search it.
wait, so who do we have? So we have Mickey, we have,
Mike Brandeis and
And
Jen
Jen.
Lisa as chair, strategies and
I don't think.
And now we have an opening for
Once-
school professional development.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the curriculum?
Yes, I have, Nikki Kapoor, Mike Brandeis, and Jen Russo.
You have room for one more, or no?
Can't have four,
Can't
otherwise
have
it's
four,
a meeting.
okay.
You know, you can,
You want me to do that?
yeah,
Mr.
I know
Ash?
you feel pretty strongly about it too, so
Okay.
I'll take the professional development because no
You're
one's
professor
thrown in.
and Eddie.
And Eddie can be on the strategy curriculum, that's right.
Okay. So now that committee's all set. Nikki, Eddie, Jen as chair. Strategy curriculum, and I have Mike Brandeis on professional development as the professional development liaison. I have Eddie as the PTA liaison and Michael Brandeis as the foundation liaison. So facilities, I have Jen Russo as chair, Michael Finley, and Eddie Lennon. Right?
Mhm.
So for finance, I have Mike Finley, Peter McSherry, and Nikki Kapoor. Who's chairing?
Mike.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, sure.
Mike?
Okay, sure.
So, and for audit committee, I have Mike Finley and Peter McSherry. I have two, so.
I said I'd do it. I mean, somebody else is welcome to do it, but
And who's chairing? Peter.
Pete's chair.
We need a Medicaid committee. Liaison.
Roy?
What are you trying to say?
And the president is usually the liaison to those organizations, New York State School Board Association, Westchester County School Board Association.
Okay.
and those. So,
Mm.
Medicaid.
Jen's on it, why don't she just stay?
So Connie is only Medicaid left.
I'm on it?
That's
Correct.
like the only thing I need to, I'll do it.
Oh.
There's absolutely nothing to do with Medicaid.
Right.
If we choose not to be involved
Yeah, there's
on
nothing.
advice that the damages, if we ever screw anything up, would be far worse than anything we could possibly recover,
Isn't this
which
what
is
just
not
got the
much.
Scarsdale people in trouble?
I think that was payroll taxes.
Was it
There's
this one?
payroll taxes.
Yeah.
So new this year too, you'll see it also, sign the administrators that typically have been serving on the committee but were never formally appointed by the board. So I can scroll up and down so you can see that. Oh, I don't think we did negotiations actually.
Do we need it?
yeah, I thought we didn't think we
We don't
needed
really
it.
need any, but
Do we fill it even, do we still have to fill it even though we,
For negotiations?
you don't have to. You don't.
I
you
thought
don't have
it
to.
was me, but we said, yeah, I wasn't gonna do anything.
yeah,
Yeah, you-
why don't you put Pete as chair, I'll be on it,
Yeah.
and if anybody else wants it, I don't think
I mean, the
there'll
only
be much
reason
to
you need
this
it if
year.
something came up and, well, you
Yeah.
have to renegotiate
If they
something in
want
the contract.
advice,
Just two?
I think that's fine.
Not gonna happen.
I can put me on it, Connie, if you want.
It's the union contracts, and we did that last year. So,
One last thing.
yeah.
Okay.
So are those administrative positions as listed okay with everyone?
Yep.
Jeez.
So now we just need a motion to approve the committee assignments.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Is there a separate oath for the audit committee?
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
Okay, do you, Peter McSherry, Michael Finley, and Susan Connor solemnly affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of New York, raising the right hand?
I do.
And that you will faithfully discharge, according to the best of your ability, the duties of a member of the Board Committee of the Board of Education of Bronxville Public School, to which you have been elected?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, I guess next we're adopting meeting dates for this coming year. Any questions or discussion on meeting dates? Motion to approve the calendar, the meeting date calendar for next year.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I'm trying to get to the right page, but there's a whole slew of annual designations and appointments that are necessary for current staff. The board has those in front of them. I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
I gotta ask, what is the asbestos designee?
He's designated to handle asbestos. We are actually allowed, we have to keep track of all the asbestos in the building, and we are allowed to remove up to 10 square feet at a time. Steve Feaster is trained in that and is our designee to handle that.
And I guess, I don't know if it's this part or some other subjects, and Dan, but the insurance broker, this is the new individual or firm that we're using?
Yes, they've been the broker for a while. We've had a consultant. We no longer have a consultant. We don't have anybody to replace them. But even with the consultant, we had been going through this broker to secure coverage. So we're continuing with the broker, and we appoint them annually.
And you're satisfied?
Yeah. You know, they've kept the rates pretty flat the last couple of years. I think, you know, they didn't really do that much as far as the flood goes, but there was not much they could do, given our experience.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd give them a pass on that one.
And then there was something they called new this year, custodial fund, miscellaneous special revenue fund.
Those are appointments required by, I think, one of the GASBs, that we had to split the, I think, split up our special aid fund into two, off of our special aid fund, or into two other funds. It's just,
So it's just
Yeah,
a technical
exactly.
Stipulation?
yes.
All right.
Any other questions on these annual appointments? Can we have a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Thank
opposed
you.
or abstentions? Motion carries. I guess next we have policies on the budget, investments, and purchasing.
Yeah, we reviewed them with the Finance Committee. No changes were recommended. And we're required to review them annually. we comply with the general municipal law and best practices. They're reviewed by council, and we get recommendations for changes forwarded to us by sometimes New York State school boards or anybody else when they change practices or law. So we keep them current when changes are recommended, but none are recommended at this time.
Okay. Any questions?
I mean, it's not the policy itself, Dan, but on the investments, what is our average cash balance? I was trying to find that, and I couldn't do it with the monthly statements.
Average is, you know,
With all the fund balance, is it 10
we're a
million?
two-humped camel.
Yeah.
You know, we get our money in July and in January. And then work down balances from there, you know, and we get infusions of, you know, say tax dollars is roughly about 45 million total. So we get about half of that in July, half of that in August, and work down. So I'd say at any one time, we're holding, you know, an average of, you know, cut that in half, let's say 10 million.
But would that include all our fund balances that we're keeping in reserves?
Yeah, that would boost it up somewhat.
So let's say it's, I don't know, 12 million. And how is that invested, since we're actually get some money going forward on interest?
I don't have particulars in front of me, but some of it has to be in cash to cover our payrolls and our bi-monthly check runs, and that also covers our fees with the bank. And then we have, you know, our investments are limited in what we can do. It has to be fully collateralized, and, you know, full faith and credit of the U.S. government, things like that. So most of it's in treasury funds with cooperative investment groups or with a bank who tries to, you know, buy deposits with promotional rates occasionally. You know, being on the finance committee, you've seen the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean,
there's
you know, the last
virtually
couple
no
of years,
yield.
it was
But we're
kinda
heading
irrelevant,
into
but
an
now
environment
it
where we
is.
might get yield now.
Is there somebody that, you know, because the balances are you know, somewhere between 10 and 12 on a monthly basis, is there somebody that's overlooking that to make sure we don't have trapped dollars that aren't getting invested?
Sure, the treasurer and I go over our cash,
Okay, yeah.
you know, on a weekly basis, if not daily.
All right.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions? Can we have a motion to approve the budget investment and purchasing policies?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries.
The next three resolutions are based on special education. These are done annually at this reorganization meeting. It's asking you to approve the list of impartial hearing officers that are nominated by the New York State Education Department, as well as approving the chairpersons of both our Committee on Special Education as well as our Committee on Preschool Special Education. So there are three separate actions. Do you want me to do those separately? Okay. So there's a resolution on the agenda for the list of impartial hearing officers.
Motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next is the recommendation for the chairpersons of the Committee on Preschool Special Education, as well as the Committee on Special Education. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed or abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so at this point, Susan, if you don't mind, we can start the public hearing on the district-wide safety plan.
Yep.
So at this point, it's not a presentation because you've had the plan out there. It's really for an opportunity for the public to ask questions or to ask for any clarifying information on our district-wide safety plan. So we open the public hearing to see if anybody has a question. Aaron, no, you got nothing.
I would add, Roy, that this is reviewed annually and developed with Altaris, with an eye towards compliance with SED and general municipal law and evolving best practices.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, guys.
Yes, please,
Yeah.
Dan.
Since I'm not familiar, Don Brimble, I'm sorry. Since I'm not familiar with the plan from previous years to this year, could anybody just describe the highlights of what the changes are from the last several years to this year?
So, honestly, there haven't been many changes, Don, and mostly there's been improvements in what we have in place for safeties. For example, we're changing the vendor that handles our camera infrastructure because we've had some difficulties with our cameras. The new firm, I think, has started, Brad, correct, this summer, or will be starting this summer, which will allow better access for the police to access our cameras offline, better for us as well. So that's an improvement, for example. The drills are going to be the same number of drills that the state requires each year, so we'll be holding those. We're going to have some increased police presence during those drills this year after speaking with the PD, just to get feedback so they can monitor what we're doing, let us know if there's any weaknesses in our plan for the drills, for example, things of that nature. Anything that's new from the state, as Dan said, we work with Altaris, which is a security firm that provides updates to us. But in terms of significant changes, honestly, there have not been many, if any.
I think there's language about the pandemic in there that's got to be new.
That's true.
Yeah.
There is language about the pandemic and diseases that was not required previously. Just in terms of how you handle that, who you establish as essential staff who would have to come in during a pandemic, for example, and how you'd have to make sure kids can learn at home, things of that nature. Thank you.
Any other questions from the public? Anything online? Any other discussion from the board? If there's no further discussion, can we have a motion to approve the district-wide safety plan?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries. And I think we need Rachel for the next agenda item.
Well, you have to approve the minutes first.
Oh, sorry, yep. Any questions, corrections, comments, discussions on the minutes from the June 16th and June 24th meetings? If there's none, can we have a motion to approve? Can we approve them both together?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries. Good timing, Rachel.
So before you, you have our personnel agenda. You can see it's, each month will be broken up into certified staff, hourly employees, and then other personnel items. One agenda item, the first, has been discussed in executive session. This is typically the agenda where you'll see the approval of our teacher mentors, which is a program we're very proud of, where we have veteran teachers mentor any new teachers coming on, as well as looking for your approval for our curriculum leaders and our team leaders. We do have a teacher aide resignation as well as a new teacher aide hire, which has been budgeted. This is typically the agenda where we would look for the board's approval for our contractual agreement with our medical director, as well as approving our special other stipends, our non-union hourly staff and other special rates, as well as a revision to our fall coaching roster. So you have before you items A through J.
On the fall coaching, were there any new coaches this year? Because I didn't see any, usually you list other personnel items if they're new coaches, they have to be listed. So I'm assuming none.
No, I'm looking at the
I
list.
know there's a couple new football coaches, a couple new assistant coaches.
Yes, and they were on a
They were-
prior board agenda.
Oh,
They
is
were
that
approved
right?
in June.
Yes.
Okay.
You're just kind of filling in the ones we didn't have.
There's a varsity coaching change, but the coaches include us.
And as you see, we do still have a few vacancies that Joe Haven is working on. One more JV football coach,
Mm-hmm.
as well as an assistant for swimming, girls swimming. So expect, another revision in August.
And girls field hockey, another modified coach.
That's right. That's right. We had
Yeah.
someone and she had to back out.
Okay.
Just a question, Rachel, on the rates, they're down to the penny. Is this all by contract? And then,
Yeah.
is that, I'm assuming it was, but I was just like,
Yes.
all right.
They were all negotiated and then they are increased by the BTA increase. So.
There you go. Okay.
Any other questions? And we can approve these all together. Could we have a motion to approve items A through J?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you. Under other action items, there is a resolution for you to consider based on our discussion in executive session. Any questions?
There being none, may I have a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to financial action items. Last meeting, this meeting, and next meeting, you're probably going to see more financial action items than you will the rest of the year combined. That's just the nature of how we approve contracts. There's a series of contracts here for all sorts of consultants and services. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have. Not all, but most of the increases or changes in the contracts either were none at all or are lower than the rate of inflation. And I think we're in our last year where we can extend our trash contract. Typically, I think the last time the controller was in there, they told us we had to bid that one out, and the bid came in much higher than our renewal rates go. It's, I think trash and transportation, we seem to only get one bidder each time go around. So we'll have to bid that one out next year. But this year I want to renew it, and even though the inflation rate was up in the 5 to 6% range, the ability to renew the contract there, I talked them down to at least what our increase in the budget was, so I think we got a decent deal there. And by the way, we love their service. They're great. Whenever we need dumpsters, we get them. The pricing for the trash is just for normal trash pickup. Dumpsters are extra whenever we need them. And we spent a lot more in this past year with the flood than we usually do. Probably about $10,000 more than we spend annually on average. But we got great service for that. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have on any individual contracts.
Where are we with busing? Are we with the same company as we were this past year, or did we get any other bids?
I've been waiting to talk to them because I'm hoping they're training drivers like crazy right now. But I don't have a lot of hope in that we only get 1 or 2 bidders when we go out, and right now there's a driver shortage. We may get bidders paying higher, but the issue with us is that we don't transport our kids, so we don't have buses here in the first place that can then do a run for an athletic run. So we have to wait till contractors servicing schools that pay them a heck of a lot more
Right.
than Bronxville does to finish them to send buses to us. So we can get buses every day, but not until 4:30. And that's a real issue with athletic contests. And it wasn't an issue when there were enough bus drivers to go around. But the contractors now have enough buses, they do not have enough drivers.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to be prepared that we may be carpooling to get our
Yes,
kids
but,
to
you know,
games again.
We're going to have that conversation with the current contractor, and if they tell me they can't handle it, I will go out and do a bid, but I would not expect, you know, that anybody who would bid on it would be able to get buses to us by 4:30.
Yeah.
Do
And
we
we
get like a
really need 'em.
discount every time, like, they don't show? Is there some kind of, you know, recourse or anything like that?
Well, not for this, because we don't, if they don't come, we don't pay.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like we expect them every day. We give them our schedule, and the schedules change. I mean, if it rains that day, we may call and say, we don't need a couple of buses. You know, if, you know, and Joe Haven's been very, very creative in trying to schedule away games with schools that have lights, that can have later start times, you know, and playing late season games on the road, early season games at home, where there's more daylight in the fall and vice versa in the spring. But, you know, we're kind of behind a rock and a hard place with the transportation until they can get and train more drivers.
So I just had a couple of questions on the services. So capital markets advisors, what will we use them for since we're not going to be out in the market?
We have compliance, you know,
Compliance.
an annual update to our bondholders.
Like covenants?
Yeah, that's, you know, ongoing notifications, things like that. It's less than $2,500
Yeah,
a year.
I was
And
just
we're
wondering.
actually switching companies this year based on a recommendation from a prior board member because of a situation with the company we had been using. So we feel comfortable in that the person who we're going to was actually the one who structured the financing for the bond issue that we did, who had moved on to another company. So we're very happy with her to be moving back to her.
Yeah, I mean, the list that they had, I mean, was
Yeah.
extensive.
There's
bond
only
offering, yeah.
basically 2 that handle all of this in New York State.
And then we use a group for state aid, special education. Is this to make sure we're getting all the money that
That's
the state has
exactly what it's
available
for.
to us?
Yeah.
And we're happy with them? Okay. I think it would be helpful, especially because the next couple board meetings, you're right, we're going to get a bunch of these. If we just had this kind of listed out, because when we get the board package, we're kind of flipping through it. I'm just having a hard time kind of seeing what expenses are going up, and you've done a great job, the ones I was able to figure out, getting below inflation.
Yeah, I put together a table and
Oh, you
sent
did?
it to you a little
Okay.
earlier in the day, but, yeah, I could send that around to the whole.
Yeah, I think it'd just be helpful so
Sure.
you could kind of see where the costs are going.
Yep.
Great.
Were there any other questions? Could we have a motion to, what is it?
Financial action items A to I.
financial action items A through I.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carries.
Thank you. Yeah, there's nothing new on facilities. There are some change orders coming. We'll run those, we'll talk about those with the new facilities committee, and they're the final change orders for the electrical contract. There's a whole slew of them in a pile that don't actually total all that much money.
These
But-
were all the ones that we previously discussed?
For the yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
that we've carved out an
Yes.
expectation for?
Yeah, exactly. And those will probably get on the agenda at the August meeting.
All
Other
right.
than that, you know, we're cleaning the classroom, stripping floors, all that kind of stuff that we do during the summer.
All right, is the next agenda item, is that just committee reports, Connie? Are there any committee reports?
And the next meeting is on
September 1st is the next meeting, and are there any other, I guess it's time to open up to public discussion. Would anyone like to say anything? If there's no public discussion, then I believe that concludes the meeting. May we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries. Have a good night, everyone.